Jesus asked the Pharisees, what about the baptism of John? Was it from heaven or was it from men? We're not going to discuss that one today. But there's a similar question. What about this person's ministry? Is it from heaven or is it from men? What about their credentials? Are these credentials from heaven or are these credentials from men? So today we are looking at 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 3. You show that you are a letter from Christ, the result of our ministry, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts. So Paul has a particular concept, particular message of what the truly valid letter of recommendation should be. What the valid credential should be. Because he's answering the question, his own rhetorical question, do we need letters of recommendation to you? Which he then has answered in verse 2, you yourselves are our letter written on our hearts, known and read by everybody. Now, if you go into a typical preacher's office, you'll see on the wall, framed, you will see a MDiv degree, Master of Divinity, and you will see a framed certificate of ordination. And they're written in ink on parchment or paper. Paul says he's not concerned about those kind of credentials, letters. He was looking at a different kind of letter. Is it from men? No. It's from Christ. Well, how do we say we have a credential from Christ? I mean, it's easy for me to walk in and say, my credentials come from Jesus Christ himself. And you go, and how do we know that? That's a good point. And some people try to defend these things. Paul said, well, look, I met Jesus on the road and he taught me in the desert. Okay. You believe him or you don't. But more importantly, Paul says here, he doesn't go to those credentials. He says, look at your own lives, what God has done in your life through my teaching. That is how it is from Christ. You show that you are a letter from Christ, the result of our ministry, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God. Not on tablets of stone, that is not like the law that Moses brought down from the mountain, but on the tablets of human hearts. Now, what can I give for that? Well, I will tell you a little story. I went to India a number of times. The first time was in 1983. I was only there for 3 weeks. Through the work of God, everything about my arrangements for the trip fell apart. And I ended up being someone, my kind of mentor about India ministry, such as he was, asked a local Christian to kind of rescue us from the disaster of the travel plans, which wasn't our problem. It was the result of a major weather disaster. But, so I got to meet Elisha Peter. And then when the actual ministry in the field fell apart because of the corruption of the local field workers for the church, I ended up spending the rest of my time with Elisha and getting to know him very well and being essentially adopted by him into his family. I was not able to go back for about 10 years. I came back 10 years later in 93. And after spending 3 weeks ministering with Elisha, on my last day that I would be there, I spent an hour teaching him in a way that made me a little uncomfortable because I felt that he was in the wrong about one thing about how he was responding to his community. And we talked about how we respond to the poor that are around us. And so I spent that time talking to him. I was not able to go back for another 10 years or so. In the interim, Elisha went home to be with Jesus. So when I came back again, there was a thriving church, and his son, Vijay Samrat, was pastoring that church. So a lot of the people, I've realized after a while that a lot of the people there were not the people I had seen 20 years before. Not surprising. So when I needed to make a report back to America of what the progress was, one of the things I needed to ask was, what are the backgrounds, the religious backgrounds of the people in the church? Because so much of the work done by the various Christian missionaries in India is not reaching people with the gospel of Jesus as much as convincing them that this American denomination is better than that American denomination. And I won't name the names, but you can imagine the differences of doctrine that this revolves on. I was quite surprised by his answer. More than half of the church were Muslim. In India, your identity card has your religion on it. I won't go into why. And more than half the church had official government identity cards that said Muslim. Not that they were not faithful Christians, but that is what they received as an ID card when they were born. I was surprised. I was even shocked. Because the one area of ministry that I had all my life avoided was outreach to Muslims, because I felt that I was totally incompetent to reach out to Muslims. I said, Samrat, how did this come to be? He said, well, this community is actually majority Muslim. And they're very poor. I knew that they were very poor. And he said, remember that it was you that did it. I said, me? Me? He said, remember that talk you had with my father? The last day you were here before. I said, yes. He said, you pierced his heart. He changed the way we reach out to the community. He changed the way we reach out to the community. That is why these Muslims are here. Because we began to show the love of Jesus to them in a tangible way. That's my letter. That is my letter.